Hey everybody, Jay Super Awesome here. I'd like to welcome you all to episode number 11 of my Slasher Movie Archives. In this video, I will be giving my review for The LEPRECHAUN'S game, released in 2020. Wanna play? Okay, so getting into the plot for this one. Struggling to cope with his partner's unexpected pregnancy, Carl must go to any length to provide for his new family. After being called in for a job with an old sketchy business partner, Marshall, he is hesitant to get dragged into something he might later regret. They are hired by a collector who asks them to steal the leprechaun's gold. Thinking they would earn some easy cash, Carl and Marshall recruit some local workers to help them search for the gold, which they soon discover is at the end of the rainbow. However, as they divide up the gold in exchange for cash, they realize that the road to riches is not always smooth and can be deadly. Okay, so getting into my thoughts for this one. Being a big fan of the original Leprechaun franchise, I was really interested in checking this one out. I did go into it with low expectations. I'm a little surprised that it has taken this long for somebody to attempt their own version of a leprechaun character that's not part of the original franchise. I know we had Red Clover, but I thought that movie was more like Leprechaun Origins, where you had more of a monstrous creature feature type movie than the original Leprechaun franchise, where we had more of a humanoid killer. There was also another one called Unlucky Charms put out by Full Moon, so I guess there has been a few of them, but I'm still a little surprised that there hasn't been more attempts at leprechaun horror movies. So with that being said, just like I said before, I was interested in checking this one out and giving it a try. And I can honestly say that after watching this movie, the thing that it did the most effectively for me was to make me miss the original Leprechaun series and just make me want to watch them instead. Anyway, the Leprechaun's game uses a very familiar setup. Basically, anyone who takes the Leprechaun's gold is marked for death. The Leprechaun will stop at nothing to get his gold back, killing anybody who stands in his way. That is the most simplistic way I can describe it. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the characters we have in the Leprechaun's game. The thing I like most about this storyline is that we have a collector who collects strange and unusual mythic items. He hires Carl and Marshall to bring him the Leprechaun's gold. Of course, we know that the gold can be found at the end of the rainbow, so that's a pretty cool setup. Carl and Marshall both think that this rich collector is crazy, and they figure it's going to be easy money. Carl is a little reluctant to take the job at first, but he has recently discovered that his wife is pregnant, and now he feels the pressure to provide for his family. So he accepts the handsomely paid job offer. Marshall assembles a professional team that he has worked with many times before to help him search for the Leprechaun's gold. Now, I say professional team, but I didn't notice anybody having any specific skills that made them stand out. So they felt more like a group of average Joes who were just desperate for money. So there wasn't anything special about any of them. The group consisted of characters that needed the money and were desperate for the money for various different reasons. After they do find the Leprechaun's gold, they decide to fall back on their original deal with the collector and decide to divide the gold up amongst themselves. Murder and mayhem ensues. Overall, I didn't really care for any of the characters in this movie, even though I can relate with some of them. I just didn't really find any of them to be all that interesting, and I thought the acting was pretty rough. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the most important part of a slasher movie, that is the killer and the kills. I have always been a big fan of the idea of a leprechaun killer. The leprechaun in this movie is exactly what you would expect from a storytelling aspect. So I didn't have any issues with the storyline for the villain in this movie. The appearance of the leprechaun, on the other hand, left a lot to be desired. The character of the leprechaun in this movie is clearly wearing a mask, and they didn't try to do anything to hide the fact that the actor was wearing a mask. So it kind of makes the overall appearance of the leprechaun look like it was just thrown together. So that is a little of a letdown for me and kind of takes me out of the movie a little. The thing is with these kind of movies, for me, You really have to nail the look of the killer, and I'm pretty forgiving on a lot of things, but if you miss on the killer, then that hurts the overall movie for me. So I wasn't a big fan of the look of the leprechaun killer in this movie. Also, as you would probably expect, the leprechaun in this movie was a talker. But in all honesty, personally, I couldn't understand much of anything that he had to say. He tried to use this scary, monster-sounding voice, but it wasn't clear enough for me to understand much of anything that he was saying. There was one part in particular that I played over and over again, trying to figure out what he was saying, and I never did figure it out. So overall, the killer in this movie was kind of a mixed bag for me. I was excited to be watching a movie about a killer leprechaun, but the actual leprechaun character himself just kind of misses the mark. And as far as the kills go in this movie, it has a pretty high body count. I believe we have somewhere around 10 or 11 kills, so we do get a pretty good variety of kills. The leprechaun in this movie likes to dispose of his victims with various different tools, such as a machete, a hammer, and even a meat cleaver. And of course, he also likes to use his magic with a few of the kills. And it's probably worth mentioning, he is taking the souls of his victims. So even though this movie has a high body count, the kills just weren't all that fun or interesting to watch. A few of the kills were a little too drawn out in my opinion, and some of them were over with in a blink of an eye. So they either held the kill on screen for way too long, or it happened so quick you really don't get a good look at it. So overall, I can't really recommend the Leprechaun's game. It was kind of a rough watch for me. All it really did for me was make me want to watch the original Leprechaun movie franchise. IMDb give the Leprechaun's game a 3.3. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. So please like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know if you have seen the Leprechaun's game, or just let me know what you think about my review. And as always, I would like to thank you all for watching.